Hello and welcome to the Everyone Has a Story podcast. As most of you know by now, my wife and I, we've never had children, but one thing that we thoroughly enjoy is spending time with our nieces and nephews. And now that they're now adults and parents, we get to spend time with our great nieces and nephew. But this one time, many years ago, I'm going to say probably 20, 25 years ago, we're in a small town outside of Rapid City, South Dakota. And we're with my wife's niece and her two young boys. And one of the things that we always like to do when we visit South Dakota, besides seeing the family and spending time with the family, is we like to go see some of the historical spots. And there's this one little town that we just love going to. So after we had all of our whatever we had to do around the house, we decided that we're going to take the two boys into this small little town because we like to visit it. And maybe get them a little treat for being good guys. I have to be their favorite uncle somehow, right? So anyway, we drive into town. We're going to get a snack to eat while we're just walking around the town, seeing all the sights. And I see that there's a old-fashioned candy store. So I asked the boys if they wanted to go get some candy, and they go, "Oh, yeah." But they said, "Can we go to the one across the street?" And I looked across the street, and there's another old-fashioned candy store. So I'm thinking, sure. I go, "But why is that one any different than this one?" They said, "Oh, the people over there are so much nicer." Well, I love business. I love good customer service. So I'm excited to see how much friendlier these people are because I love good customer service. So we walk in and there's probably 100 different variations of candy. So they can't make up their mind. They can't make their mind. So about that time, one of them says, "Okay, I'm going to get this." So he ordered whatever type of candy he got. And the lady started to shovel in the amount of candy. The bag is up on the scale. So he gets exactly the amount of that he's supposed to. And then the other little boy, he does the same thing. Everything is good. So we're walking out of the store. They're happy. They're chewing on their candy. And I said, "You know what, guys? Your uncle is really feeling like a fun guy today. So let's go across the street and let's get more candy. I want to see what the candy is like in there." So we put their bags in the car. We walk into the next door. And they're looking and they're really excited because they're able to get 2 bags of candy. So the youngest one says, "Okay, I'm ready." So he orders his candy and she puts the brown bag up on the scale and she starts to scoop and she puts a real giant scoop of candy in. She sees that it's a little bit too much that he wanted. So she starts to scoop a little bit away. And he goes, look, Uncle Roger, you see that? She's taken some of my candy away." And I looked and I said, "Is that why you think that she's not very nice?" He goes, "Yeah, why would she take my candy away? She puts it in my sack and now she's taken it away." And so now I'm walking out thinking, that is customer service in such a unique way because the lady across the street had a much smaller shovel to put the candy in. So she kept adding. So to that little boy, she kept adding. He just thought that was the coolest thing. But the other attendant across the street had a much bigger scoop. So she put too much in and she had to take a little bit away. And all that little boy could see and his brother could see is that lady's mean because she's taken some of my candy away. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is not just customer service per se, but we're going to talk about, finding those doors of opportunity. And so today we're going to talk about opening those doors and finding those doors. And so you think about it, how many opportunities in our lifetime have we missed, both personally and professionally? I'm going to say quite a few, I'm sure, but I think it's also very, very sad because most of us don't know how to see an opportunity or even know that there's opportunities out there. And that's what we're going to talk about today with my guest, Susanna. So Susanna, welcome. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for the invitation.
So Susanna Hopkins Hughes is very unique. She's the area manager for Supercuts here in the Tucson area. And she oversees quite a few of the stores and the operations and the stylists. And really what I thought today was going to be unique about today is that we're going to talk real life situations, not things that could be come across as theoretical or whatever like that. We're talking real life today. And that's what I'm really excited about this conversation. So, Susanna, take a couple minutes and just let the audience know a little bit about who you are and why you're here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me again. And who am I? Well, my actual job and my actual title is Certified Technical Trainer for the Supercuts franchisee in Tucson. But my legal title is an area manager. So, how did I get here? That's opening those doors, like you said. You want me to start with my story?
Absolutely. But before you do that, I'm going to just say that she's a little bit kind of shy here because really what she came across was that and it's kind of the quote from Milton Berle that says, when opportunities don't come knocking, just go build another door. And that's what she really talks about when she's talking about her training process and everything is really, see opportunities. And if they really don't really come your way, build that other door to have that door start knocking in your favor. And her story is quite unique. So let's start with your story now. Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt, but let's start with that story because it is very unique.
Well, like the accent can say it, I grew up in Mexico, in Magdalena de Quino, Sonora, in Mexico. And I grew up there until I graduated from high school. Like, and I'm pretty sure every parent feels like you have to have an idea on what you're going to do when you grow up, right? So I had to choose a career right away. So I chose to go and study psychology, but to do that, I had to move to Hermosillo, then is the capital of the state. So move over there, started going to school, went through 4 semesters because it was 3 years, but basically I couldn't get out of the 4 semester. Learned a lot, but by the 3rd year, I was like, I'm just making my parents use money then, like they will need. And I don't even know what I'm doing. So I decided to talk to my dad and tell him, you know what, this is not working. I feel like I'm failing you. And so he comes up, with the first opportunity, we can say, coming to Tucson to learn English. Now, you hear my last name, right? So that was the goal, because every time that I crossed the border, it was a fight with law enforcement, right? Because it was like, how come you are a U.S. citizen, your last name is Hopkins, and you don't speak English? So you can imagine that. So my dad was like, okay, so for the summer, you're going to go and learn English, and we'll see what happens at the end of the summer. So I come over. My aunt was already living here, so I come and stay with her. She opens the door of her house to me, and I started taking English classes. By the end of the summer, I have to make a decision. Am I going back? What am I doing? And of course, you don't know what to do. At 18, you don't know what to do, right? So after those 3 years, I was already 21 and I had to do something with my life. My aunt talks to me and she's like, why are you leaving? Just stay, just stay. I made friends already. I was, taking my classes and everything. So I talked to my dad and I'm like, can I stay? And he's like, of course, if your aunt is okay with that, you can stay. So I stayed. I continued going to my English classes. I made friends. I got a job. I got my first job and started working. At this first job, of course, like you never know what you're going to get. You just need a job. I found it thanks to one of the girls then went to my English classes with me. She was looking for a roommate, so I moved in with her, and she told me that at her job they needed people. So that's how I got my first job. I did at that company, I did every single job from receptioning to packaging to filling out tile. I did everything. Um, but at the end, like they were making me do things and I didn't like doing. So I talked to my manager at that time, and he said, "Sure, no problem." And that one morning, he comes in and he's like, "Here," and throws bunch of papers into my desk, and he's like, "This order needs to be done by 8." And it was like 7:30. And I look at him and I said, "So do that." And he just looked at me and he's like, "So if you're not gonna do it, just grab your stuff and go." So of course I grabbed my stuff and I left. Why? Because why will you treat somebody then have done everything for your company that way? So I was like, no, I'm not letting this happen. So left. Of course, it was a stressful week because I didn't have a job. But it just took me a week. Um, I started looking for a job. Of course, with 3 years of psychology, I could do a lot more. And I found a job at an after school program. So I remember, like when they interview me, it's like, "So, what's something that you cannot do?" And I said, "Read," right? Because I was a little embarrassed of it because my English was not that good either. But I know how to take care of the kids. I know how to play. I know. So it was an, a door then opened at that moment that I needed it the most. I needed to feel like I could do something even better. I could learn something new, and I can say I stayed there for like around 7 years with them. Um, at the end of that program, like I was already reading to the kids. It was a really good experience because working with kindergartners, when your language is not as good, I learn a lot from them because they don't laugh at you. They actually ask you, "Do you mean this?" And they say the word again, and I'm like, "Okay, how do you say it? Say it again." So like that was a learning experience for me. I think they taught me more than what I taught them. But it was a really, really good experience. At the end, after those 7 years, of course, all the jobs start changing and they have to open um, more possibilities for more kids. And they started letting special need kids coming into the program. Now that's a little more stressful because we didn't have the training for it. So of course it gets to a point and you don't know what to do. And I had one of the little kids to kick me, and I was like, at that point, I was like, "This is not what I want to do the rest of my life." So that's when I started looking into beauty school. I go to I go through all of them and look at them, and finally choose the one that I went and see the first time. And I decided to get a loan and start going to school. That was, I can say, that was the best decision I made. Like all the decisions brought me to where I'm at right now, but that one, it was hard. It was, like working from 6:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon and going to school from 3:30 to 8:30 at night. It was hard, but it was worth it. It was really, really worth it. I finished my cosmetology program, and I was still working at the schools. And by the end of the summer, I decided that I was able to, like to have only one job. And as soon as I graduated from Supercuts from beauty school, I came to Supercuts, and it was awesome. It was awesome, and I stayed working with Supercuts for 10 and a half years. then it gets, like gets to the point, then you start getting a little bit like, why am I learning here? What do I do? Like they start, like the industry starts changing too. It's more fun colors, more different things than you need to learn. And Supercuts is a chain, and we are focused more on haircuts than on color. We do a little bit of color, but not those colors that they present all over social media, right? And so, of course, you want to learn, you want to do something different, you want to grow. I get the opportunity to open a salon with one of my friends, and that was a really good experience. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I don't have the patience for it. So I decided to go and get my instructor's license. That was the time when I met my husband. So he encouraged me to go and get my instructor's license. So I go back to the beauty school I went to. Then I always had a really good relationship with the director and the instructors and everything. And they opened the door for me to do my instructor's program there and actually stay and work with them. So I stayed with them for 3 years, and it was an awesome experience. I love, like teaching. I love, like when those students open their eyes and are like, oh, that's how you do it. So that's amazing. That's the best feeling. Now I get the opportunity to come back to Supercuts as their as their certified technical trainer, and I take that opportunity. Well, 10 and a half years of experience with them. I know what I was getting into, and I am here.
Well,
All those doors open one after another one, and I think the best is to listen to yourself and see those doors opening, and really, really push yourself to go that way.
it's amazing that you talked about that there's something that just internally inspiring to yourself when you start to teach and people have learned. And one of my favorite quotes from John Wooden is, "You haven't taught until they have learned." And there's something magical about when you see young minds, old minds, any mind really starting to grasp something new to them. I love that. All right. So now let's get to our topic, which is opening doors. You and I have had multiple conversations. And the one thing that always resonated and came out of your mouth was opening doors. And it comes in a lot of variations. So tell me and the audience, what is your definition of opening doors?
I think opening doors is, in my definition, when I talk about that, is seeing the opportunities that are around you and actually paying attention to them, because those opportunities can lead to something else, can lead to meet people that you never thought you were going to meet your next coworkers, meet your next boss, um, learn from a lot of people that sits in, for us in my career, the people that sits in my chair. If it wasn't for those people that sit in my chair, I wouldn't be here with you. I have met a lot of people that inspire me. Um, as a hairstylist, you see so many people, so many different personalities, so many different stories. Every person that sits on your chair has something to share with you. Sometimes they just want to sit in your chair and be quiet. And most of the time, when you see them close their eyes, it's like, don't talk to this person. But sometimes just sharing, like, how was the weather? How are you enjoying the weather today? Starts opening that conversation between the guest and the stylist, and you start sharing, like, what do you do over the weekend? And then you start finding out people that has a lot of things in common with you, and you share stories, and you share um you know things that can help to something that you're going through on that day. So I think those conversations is, like they're opening those doors to your life, to your next conversation, um to meet more people.
I love that you brought up sharing because, as we all know, from an employee's point of view, talking to a customer or client, sharing can come in a lot of different forms, and sometimes it's
Exactly.
not quite the right. And so let's still stay with the focus on the doors. Every door that is closed may need that key to open up that door. When you're talking to your staff, what is the key that you share with them to really open that door?
Well, I think the main key for any relationship, work, personal, friendship, anything, is communication. When you I think communication is the key for everything. When you communicate with a person, and when we talk about communication, it's not only talking, it's the listening part. When we listen to what somebody has to say, we can have like a bigger picture of what's going on somebody's life. We have a bigger picture of how we can fix something, how we can recreate the environment, how we can um, fix some problems or help somebody. So I have always think, like, then that's the biggest key for everything, for like employee, manager, or the owner to the stylist, the owner to their employees. It has to be a communication to be able to make a place work together. So that's, in my opinion, the key for every door, the
So,
communication part.
yeah, it all starts and ends with communication. So, let's talk about really authentic sharing. You know, use it, yours and my one of our favorite quotes together is always be the first rate version of yourself instead of a second rate version of someone else. And that was said by the late Judy Garland, who played Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz. Now, there's a lot of times, especially after we get done with some form of education, that we are taught to be someone that we're really, really authentically nowhere close to being. So when you start sharing, it comes across as about as phony as it could ever be. And I know that you and I have had a lot of conversations about that. So tell me about really when you're talking to one of your staff, what is authentic sharing and how do you explain it?
Well, I have come across a lot of, like, people that is trying to be someone, and then it end up being something else. I've been having that situation with doing interviews, starting with doing interviews. When they come to an interview, I talk to them. When we're talking, like, they seem like, oh, this is going to be a good stylist. We hire them, start training them. Then they're in the store, and I'm like, they start asking me the other managers are asking me these questions, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, this person did do this, and this. And I'm like, well, no, nothing like that came across on the interview. It's like, she's this person seemed like it was a good, like, person for your store. So sometimes it's a challenge, the sharing part. It's like, maybe they don't want to say those things on the interview, or maybe they just don't want to share. Exactly. Now, once it is a stylist, how can we, like, sharing our conversations, how can we help them? Sometimes, like, that is the key to fix the situation, like really having a conversation with that one person, and maybe push them a little bit to actually tell us the full story on what is going on and how can we help. Then sometimes, like their story is a lot harder and it has nothing to do with what we could help with. So, but the only way to fix an environment is sharing, communicating, telling the full story, and really getting to know that other person. So I think um, having, like this franchise has 22 stores. So it is really hard to know exactly what's going on with each person's life. And sometimes in situations when, like they are acting on a way, then we're like, what's going on? Like this person never acted that way. Or um, then you start noticing they are uncomfortable or they are a little bit more um, not as kind or as pleasant with the guest. And that's when you start noticing something is going on with this person. Now, we all have our own story outside of work. So, sometimes some people have a hard time sharing what's happening with their life. Now, I made my job. My boss didn't tell me that was my job. I just took it on my own. To always, when I'm on one of the stores, always have a conversation with each stylist and try to get, like how are they doing, how, like their life is going, not only in a store, in a salon, but like in their own life. Because sometimes the only thing you need to do is actually take it out of your body and say, you know what, this is what's happening. And sometimes, like those things happen to one of us, and we have a little bit of story on how to, like maybe you can use these tools to fix that problem so you can come back as the person that we hire to do this job. So I think sharing sometimes has the answers for our problems or our situations, our hard situations, and everything comes to a communication.
You know, but sometimes that communication is with ourselves, right? I, we've just got through 2.5 years of the pandemic, and business owners, managers, employees have learned a lot about the business, the environment, and themselves. And one of the things that you hear from a lot of the frontline employees, and it doesn't matter what generation they come from, is that they never felt that they were heard. But number one, or even more important than that, they never felt listened to. And I know that sometimes you almost have the other managers ask, why are you talking and having these quick little meetings with your staff? Because you felt it was very important. So, what does the person telling you the story get out of telling you their story, what's happening today, why they're not in the best spirit, the best mindset, or in their best place for each customer coming in? But then what do you learn from as their manager when you hear their stories and make them tell you their stories?
Well, what do I get from it? Um, get to know that person, and sometimes understand why sometimes, like somebody's too quiet or is talking more than necessary or sharing too much information to a guest. Then you can see the guest is not, like happy about it, um, or is making somebody uncomfortable. Um, that's what I get as a manager, like seeing the situation. Sometimes we are the ones that have to, because we know the situation and we understand what's happening now when we have all that information in, um, make a decision. Sometimes is, like this person needs an extra day off to fix that problem. Um, or sometimes, like maybe they need to be moved to another store. So, like the environment is different, um, or the clientele is different also, so it helps you make changes to try to accommodate, like the necessities of our stylist in this case. So I think that's what we get of all these conversations. Not only that, what I think we get too is to show our stylists, and they can actually, then we're open for them to talk to us. So they can actually come and tell us what's going on. Um, and then we will try to help us the more that we can. I think that's what we get from it.
So it sounds like what you get is a better connection, and you get the trust of your employees. And we all know that if you have that opening, if they have that open engagement and they feel that it's a safe environment from them and they can trust you with whatever they need to say, they're going to do more for you. They might not realize it,
Exactly.
but the business, the customer, everybody is going to get a much better experience, which is what business is. It's people dealing with people. It's one experience where both parties should feel good about. And today, as simple as this may sound, so many businesses, even after the pandemic, and they've heard from their employees, and they don't, and these employees don't want to come back, they haven't realized that all they want is that safe environment to where if they're having that off day, and you know what, we all have off days, and a lot of times that day can be reduced to just an off moment that can be immediately turned around if you have a proactive manager with a huge heart like you, to where you see something's off and you go address it. I'll bet you most managers and business owners know something about sports, and they watch sports, and they see their favorite team walk on the court, and they know they have this strategy and how they're going to beat their opponent. And when things don't go so good, what does the coach do? They call a timeout, and they sit the players down, and they work out what's going on and to maybe adjust a little bit. So instead of having that bad moment turn into a bad day, turn into a bad week or a bad whatever, they nip it right then and there. And so many managers don't take the time to have conversation and realize that conversation goes both ways, of both verbalizing and listening, and hearing what they need to hear, having that trust between the two of you. So that way you're hearing what you need to hear as a manager to give the right advice to minimize that bad day into just a moment and not the full day.
Exactly. So, and that's something that I always tell my stylists. Just remember, this is your safe area. The problems are going to be out there when you leave. Leave them in the car. Come here, rest from all the stuff that you have in your mind, do what you like to do, and then go home and fix the problem. Because sometimes we need a break. We need that break to actually think, because you need to stop thinking about the problem to actually find the solution. So we try to be those people, like the ones that you can talk to me and let's fix it together if we can. And then you can go and fix it yourself. So I think, like having the trust of talking to somebody, like talking to whoever is working with you, your manager, it makes a difference on a company. I think so.
And I love that, because as a business consultant, I talk to a lot of owners, a lot of managers, and so many times I hear them say, one of the things I'm most proud of is I have an open door environment and an attitude, so anybody can come to me and talk anytime. And then when I go talk to the employees and I'm asking them about how the environment is at work, they say that, we can never feel like we can talk to the owner, the manager. And here the owner and manager are saying, we are so proud of this. But in reality, because really reality, it doesn't matter what they say. The reality is what the employees think and what the customers think, right? And they just don't understand that just saying, "Oh, Susanna, I have an open door policy. Come talk to me anytime you want." But it's how I react to it. And sometimes people don't even think the manager's even listening because they never bring their head up, right? And
Exactly.
and right then and there, that's not an open door, really mentality and mindset if you're focused on what you're doing in front of you as opposed to listening to your employee in front of you, right?
Yeah,
I
sometimes the physical door is open, but the mind door is not. So you're not
yeah
actually listening to what they're saying. And that's a problem. If you don't respond to their problem, if you're not actually present at the moment they're talking to you, nothing comes across. There's
yeah.
no solution.
And then you start to find that their hiring process starts to replicate the kind of people that they are. They start hiring someone close to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was working with an individual that had a spa, and she was very, very proud of her spa, how it was really so inviting for people to come in and know that they're going to have a very, very relaxed, pure relaxation and just an enjoyable experience, right? So I go walking in for the first time, and the girl behind the front desk was no different than Wednesday Adams from the Adams Family, where she had that scowl on her face and she looked like if I said the wrong word, she's going to murder me and throw my body to the alligators, right? and and when I'm talking to her, she came across that same way. So when I'm talking to the owner now and I'm meeting with the client, and she's so proud of that, and I have her walk out the door, and I said, "Look at your employee," and I'm referencing this employee, and she says, "Yeah." I said, "So does she not remind you of Wednesday Adams? I mean, she hasn't smiled for the last 5 minutes and she's talked to 3 or 4 customers." She goes, "Yeah, I never noticed that." And then I said, "Have you ever noticed that we've been now talking for a half a day and you never once smiled with me?" And all of a sudden she realized that, maybe she's the one dictating why Wednesday Adams is acting like Wednesday Adams, you know, and and so this is really where businesses, I think, are falling short. And I know that when I was there with you sitting in that chair, you never stopped smiling while you were talking. But the guy next to you, the stylist next to you, I don't know what he and his customer was talking about, but I don't know how he could cut because he was laughing. I mean, they were having so much fun together. They were laughing, enjoying. I'm thinking, geez, I'd be afraid that my ear would get cut off with all that laughing. But they were having
Yeah.
the best time of their life. And I'm thinking, why can't other businesses replicate this? So tell me, why do you think? Because I know you've walked into other places of business as a customer, and you know darn well that it's not going to be a good experience from the moment you walk in that door. So, what would be your words of advice to these business owners and managers to think about that experience and opening that door of opportunity for the customer to a good experience, to the employee to a good, favorable experience, and to the manager and owner to a favorable experience as well?
Well, first, visit the stores, visit your business and see who's working in it. Like you said, like this person never noticed then what she was herself doing. Sometimes we just walk in with just a straight line and we don't see what's going on around us. Something that I used to do with the receptionist more than anything. It's like, or with the managers or with my coworkers sometimes, is like, okay, let's go outside. And they're like, what? Like, let's go outside. Now open the door. And they have to be the client entering the place that they work at. I'm like, now look around. Is it clean? Is it inviting? Is it a place where you would like to go? And they're like, well, I need to move that. I need to do this. I need to do that. Okay. So now you start noticing the things that need to be changed. So same thing, it's like for an owner more than anything, You need to go to the place that you're working on, and you have to point out those things to the people that are working there. Why? Because sometimes they don't know what they don't know. Sometimes they don't see themselves doing the job. So that's a problem. When we don't see ourselves doing the job, we don't even know if we're doing a good job. We think we do, but then you realize, it's like, because like you said, and it happens because, and that's something, like on one side is good, on the other side is not. Um, People hires people like them, right? And then everybody starts behaving on the same way on the same store. And if one was behaving, like you said, Wednesday Adams, everybody starts behaving the same way, and they don't notice then those things happen. So when we come across those situations, it's like, okay, now one at a time, come in. Now you enter, and let's see what happens. So like that, they can actually see what's going on in the place of work. If not, they will never know.
So in other words, what you're telling everybody to be is in the present.
Yes.
It's so easy to come in with that tunnel vision, right?
Yes.
You've been satisfied from the past. You really don't really care right now for the future, but more than anything, you're not here. You might be walking in, going from the front door to your office, you close the door, whatever, you close your mind, but we all have to be very mindful of being present. And I love that simple technique to walk out. And then when you walk back in as a customer, you're making them be in the present for that moment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And behave like they would like to be, like see what they're doing and see what you would like them to do. So like that, what it needs to change and what it needs to be addressed to the person that is working, then they don't realize they're doing something. Like I had a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with one of my stylists, and I'm like, have you noticed and you do this? And then she's like, no, like, and like that, like as soon as you answer the phone, instead of smiling, you stop smiling. And she's like, I do that? I'm like, yeah, you do. So, like sometimes they don't notice, they just answer the phone. And I'm like, okay, now we're going to smile when we answer the phone. So like that, like you give them those, like those tips, then they can change and the situation is going to be different. So sometimes just need to bring it up so people know.
Susanna, I can't thank you enough for being my guest today. This has been enjoyable. And just as a right on cue, you never stop smiling throughout the whole time. So it'd be very easy for a frontline employee that you manage or your managers to know that they have a safe environment because your smile opens that door for that. So thank you. So before we leave, let's talk about one final bit of inspiration. Leave us with some just good inspiration to help us be more present and be willing to open our minds to other opportunities.
Well, I think my piece of advice is always trust yourself on, like being in the present and knowing what's happening at that time, and believe on yourself. Believe then the things then are presenting are for a reason, and sometimes those reasons are because they need to be changed. And listen to yourself, to your mind, to your heart when something is not going right and needs to be, like it's another path to it. And we just need to look around to see those doors and really start opening them, because behind those doors is where you can find happiness and the place of work that you're really looking for.
Well, great advice, great closing words. If anybody wanted to reach out to you just to learn more about some of your techniques of being an ideal manager, especially in today's time, how could someone reach out to you?
Well, I have my email address, my personal one. If do you want me to say it right now? Do you want to?
Yeah. Okay. For the people who are not on audio only.
Okay, it's Alma Hopkins 78 gmail.com.
Well, thank you very much. And I hope we do many more podcasts together.
I hope so. I really, really appreciate the invitation. And I hope a lot of people get something from this.
Yep. Thank you. My podcast wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for my sponsors and my great supporters. So let me take this opportunity to thank each and every one of them. First of all, I want to thank Rebecca at Custom Bookkeeping and Accounting, delivering trustworthy bookkeeping services since 2003. Dave and Dara at Virtues Matter, making this world a much happier place to be with their Virtues card apps, coaching, and workshops. Stephen at Buller Accounting, giving business owners depth and insight to their numbers. Eric and his team at Ivy Cat Web Design, the real superheroes of web development and design. Jennifer and Jean at the Seavers Real Estate Team, serving Pierce and Kitsap counties with their home buying and selling needs. Maury at the Maury Method, the world's only brainwave entrainment engineer, helping everyone have more clarity, less stress, and overall better brain health. Priya at Pivot My Profit, helping individuals and businesses have better control of their finances and more money at the end of their day. Melissa at the Soul Vibe Energy High, the queen of the aha moments, helping individuals find those holes in their cups, repair the hole, and gain back their positive energy. And finally, Rick at West Sound Recording. You talk, they do all the rest. Thank you, Rick, for all your efforts with the production and editing of my podcast.